floor is Carl's.
Yes, it is. Now, as some of you may remember, about a while ago,
2 years at least.
we had Metallurgy Part I, where we learned about the goodness of the noble metals, things like copper and steel and gold and chrome and platinum and all that good stuff, and lead and mercury and all the stuff that goes along with that. Now, this particular outing, we're going to talk about alloys, the way things blend together to make something either softer or harder, stronger or weaker as needed. A lot of these things you'll find in your own practices and may not have made the correlation between because of an atom may be made out of something. There's more going on there on a metallurgical level than just two things being smashed together. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, the definition of metallurgy, it's the extracting and refining of using of metals and alloys from their ores and other sources. So the earth, while abundant, kind of holds on to these things. You have to dig into a mountain, move a big boulder, shift the direction of a river to get to them. That's why people think of them as such great and wondrous things, especially gold and platinum and the precious metals. There's a lot that goes into turning them into alloys and things that we see. When gold comes out of the ground, it looks like dirt. The actual raw stuff that you mine, that shiny stuff that wedding rings and stuff are made out of, that's the end process. And that's been blended with either nickel or copper to make it strong, because 24 karat gold, you can literally mush it with your fingers like that. It's like putty. So they add things to it, and you get rose gold from adding copper to gold. That's the one big color change that will happen. And the metallurgy came from an ancient Greek word. It's actually the same word. It never changed over time. It just metallurgs the whole way through. It's a worker in metal. And that's usually like your tinsmiths, your jewelers, the people who, it's lost to antiquity now, made the lead pipes for the water system in ancient Rome, and very beginnings of alloy making, because those lead pipes weren't strong enough on their own. They actually had to add tin to while they were burning it, and is a very, very early form of lead-based steel. And it's still there today. There's places where you can actually see it still being used, because the inside is built up with so much minerals that it doesn't touch the lead anymore, the water.
Wow.
And Serbia, oddly enough, way out in Russia, where you've heard people say we're sending them there. That's where smelting began, and it was an accident. They were burning things, and stuff that they thought was wood or charcoal was actually petrified wood and a type of early form of charcoal. And when the two of them heated up together, it actually melted the metallic minerals out of the petrified wood, and it turned into an ingot at the bottom, and the carbon from the charcoal got into it and made it unbelievably strong. So at first they didn't know what to do with it, because it's just this lump of metal, but that's the beginning of smelting. They figured once you melt it down, you can add things to it, other metals, minerals, make it way stronger than just base iron. And then bronze. This is an interesting, same time frame. While the Serbians were figuring out smelting, the Egyptians figured out bronze, how to add tin to copper and wind up with something that is unbelievable. It's almost as strong as steel. On a Rockford scale, bronze is only 4 numbers down from steel. It's that strong, but those 4 numbers make a big difference. So yeah, that was Egypt. And then the Hittites, Egypt adjacent around 1900 BC. Once again, about 2,000 years after the Egyptians discovered bronze and started making it and using it for tools and amulets and lining coffins, and they used it for everything. The Hittites found up in the mountains a lightning strike. Now, what I mean by that is that lightning hit the mountain, hit an iron deposit, which oddly enough also had a large amount of ferrous tin in the soil around it. It formed a 4.5 foot long hunk of metal that was sharpened on one side just because of the way it was sitting in the ground. It's the first, thought to be the first actual sword that's because they picked it up, wrapped leather around it, and were able to just smash the Egyptian bronze swords. It would cut right through them. But that even got refined even further because it was basically a low carbon type of heavy iron. So eventually it would break. Another 1,000 years goes by and everybody's using this wonder metal that they found. And now they're making cast iron things, which in and of themselves are not strong. Around this same time in Norway, Finland, it's always the northern places. There's always a fire going. They're always looking for a heat source. And the Norsemen discovered crucible steel this way. It's modeled after everything that goes in. It's named after everything that goes into the crucible to make it. You see it now called Damascus because the Spaniards rediscovered the formula in the 1200s and started making Damascus steel, strongest steel ever, aside from this original crucible stuff from the Vikings. It was thought of as a gift from the gods because the first smith who ever made it spoke of actually being visited by, and this blows my mind, a Viking being visited by Hephaestus in a dream. Wow. Yeah, two wildly divergent cultures, but that particular god gave them the gift of steel, of that steel. Mm-hmm. And he's, Hephaestus is the Greek god of artisans, metal workers primarily. And his symbol, which is a symbol, then you'll catch a running theme. It's the hammer and the anvil and the tongs that you would see a blacksmith using in their smithy. And what's really interesting to me is that once again, the name is lost to history, but that particular smith who made the first crucible steel as a gift from Hephaestus, at the same time in Rome, there's only about 30 years difference. The Romans switched to a different type of steel to make their pilliums and their gladius swords. Once again, a gentleman was visited by Vulcan and was given the formula of how to make these particular alloys. And it's fairly simple worldwide that this crucible steel stuff, what it is you take cast iron, a lot of people call it pig iron, tin, copper, and lead. Oddly enough, lead does something to the carbon content. Once again, the true formula has been lost, but the Romans had the same idea. It's everything that went into these people that lived 2,000 miles north. And they actually worked together. A lot of times there was trade that happened between the two. So between those two cultures, a lot of different alloys started coming up. That's where you started seeing bronze being more widely used in statuary and ornamentation versus making weapons and armor out of it. They realized the beauty of polished bronze more so than just cast iron, because cast iron only stays black. It never polishes up. You can't do anything with it other than sewer pipes. But if you add, and this is, I'm rambling now. Back to the point, Carl. This brings me to a point I was going to make earlier, where the two weak things get put together and make one strong thing. This modern steel we have now, this kind of steel, it's a big nail. I could probably drive this right through a cinder block. It's that strong. But it's made out of pig iron, which is inherently very weak. If you drop it on the ground, it'll shatter like glass. But if you add a couple of ounces of tin to it, you get 1095 steel. So two weak things make one incredibly strong thing. And once it's together, it'll never come apart. They bond on a molecular level. It's like, you are my friend now. And moving forward from there was, like I said, there were a lot of different gods, a lot of different time frames, but always the same type of dream. Ptah is the Egyptian god of craftsmen and the forge. And that's another one. When Egypt made the transition from bronze to steel, the Iron Age, it's almost around 1400 years ago. Every society had the same visit from the god of their particular civilization. Yeah, I just find that fascinating. Me personally, it might have been the same guy. But he was also a dream walker, Ptah, and he was known for being an inspirer of grand things. Stuff like the golden domes and the big cap piece of the Great Pyramid. It's not there anymore. No one knows where it went, but that was inspired by him. And he was very big on getting his followers to understand, or the people that were around that would listen to him, about new techniques in metals. That whole Nile area is where most modern alloy working came from. Like, it's a lot of the stuff that they made with bronze, with tin, with iron, with silver, and then mixing it all together and making a different thing. That's the heart of where it came from. And then Lu, almost the same, well, a little north from Egypt. He's the Irish god of craftsmen. He gifted overall humans, mainly the Irish human, the knowledge of, he gifted humans with the metal workings and the knowledge of how to make metal out of stuff, and how to make certain metals stronger. Like at that time, they would plow by hand, or just have a horse pulling a single thing. He inspired them to make the plowshare with like 6 or 7 different wheels, and how to make it out of steel so it lasts longer instead of the bronze and the stone that they were using. Stone on stone, it shatters, whereas the metal will ride over it. And once again, and all 3 of these guys, Vulcan, Ptah, and Lu, guess what their symbol is? The hammer and the anvil. And sometimes, like, Ptah would have the sickle, because he was also a judge. And Lu sometimes would have the spear instead of the hammer. And that's about the only difference. Now we get to alloys. This is I like this stuff. This is where you combine 2 or more of just about any element to get something much stronger than the individual elements themselves. Hence, tin and iron makes steel. Copper and gold makes rose gold. Beryllium, which is a superconductive, unbelievably strong steel, a type of metal, that's an element. If you mix it with strontium, you get something called brontium. It's a superconducting hyper cold metal. Hence the name. It's BRRRRONtium.
VRs?
Yeah, like burr, like yeah, brontium. I found that and it's just really crazy. And then you have a lot of, I don't have one here on the table. I wish I had brought it. Beryllium carbide. Most people will know it as a drill bit. Once again, carbide is inherently soft on its own, but if you mix it with beryllium, becomes the Rockford scale of about 190, which is 10 down from diamond. That's why drills can cut through. Most drills, a beryllium carbide drill will cut through anything. But that was, once again, that was found accidentally in a forge in Detroit. Somebody made a mistake. They dropped a bar of beryllium into a kettle, that already had been contaminated with carbide steel. So when it melted just from the heat of the carbide down to the bottom, what they poured out became this unbreakable hunk of metal. And it writes itself from there. People made tools and drill bits and stuff out of it. Let's see. And then you have tungsten titanium. This metal I love because my knee's made out of some of it. Your knee's made out of some of it. It's great. Yep. It's great stuff. It's virtually indestructible. It's non-reactive to anything. It's super heavy, which allows it to be carved into very intricate lattice shapes to be used mostly in joint and ligature replacement. And oddly enough, superconductors. So there's that's like helping humans, making computers stronger. That's it. So we're all bionic if you
Don't plug us in.
Is that the only metal that you can put in human?
sterling silver, gold,
Titanium.
straight titanium,
Stainless steel.
stainless steel. Yep. They have to just be super sterilized.
Yeah.
Yep. And all of those are alloys.
Mhm.
Surgical stainless steel is a blend of iron, tin, and cobalt, oddly enough, which I'm going to get to in a minute. Cobalt, some really cool stuff.
Yeah, you can't go through a metal detector.
Nope.
I can't go through metal detector.
Well, I did the beryllium strontium joke already,
Sets it off all the time.
but yeah, that beryllium stuff is another one. It's got to be negative 400 degrees to work.
Oh, wow.
So it's a superconductor that they use in, like, they used to put it in the space shuttle. There's a lot of it up on the ISS right now. That's the International Space Station.
So
Because
it becomes malleable in the cold?
yeah,
Versus-
well, it becomes malleable. It also becomes like 4 million times more conductive than pure silver. So they can make computer chips and things that can be exposed to the vacuum and cold of space, and all it does is make them stronger and work better.
Silver is conductive. isn't it?
Wow.
No, silver is massively conductive. The only thing higher than that is gold. Which was covered in the first metallurgy class. Let's see. There's also bronze and copper. Oddly enough, you take bronze like this and you add even more copper to it, and you wind up with modern plumbing. They call it red brass. It's way better than what we used to have. They used to use, once again, the Romans, they used lead. Then for a long time, cast iron was the way to go. And then they had galvanized metal pipe, garbage. But now, and then they had pure copper. But the problem with pure copper is when it gets exposed to minerals, it will corrode and puncture. It will eventually fail. Red brass, the bronze, is non-reactive at all. And then when you add 40% more pure copper to it, it actually does an internal molecular galvanic response that makes it virtually indestructible to outside forces. So mineral deposits inside will not stick, they just wash off.
So it's good for piping.
It's very good for plumbing. That's one of the best things it's used for. And those took over from lead. And what I love about that is that everybody's house is connected, even if it ends at the meter and you've been repiped into your home. Everyone's home is already getting naturally blessed water coming out of the tap because it's going through all those miles of copper and iron pipes to get to you. Plus it's touching all the mineral deposits and everything, and none of that's bad. People add stuff to the water to make it clean, but regular tap water, when it doesn't smell like chlorine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
has already
What's
been
the-
massively blessed with a health and abundance by the time it comes out of the tap. Just by being.
If the piping is good.
Yeah, yes, copper piping is awesome. And now, I was gonna get into the correspondences of alloys, but the big one that I found, and I really went down a rabbit hole on this one. It's called cobalt. Yes. There's a couple of places in the world that it's mined in. Right now, there's kind of a problem with it because the Congo is where the biggest deposits are. The second place where there's big deposits is in northern India. But you'd have to basically bulldoze half of the Himalayas to get it all out. I mean, there's pieces of it the size of this table in those mountains, but there's no way to get to it. Every once in a while, some falls from a cliff face or a river is found that flowed through the area with the deposits. So they find it in the riverbeds.
It floats.
No, it gets washed out
Oh, okay.
with all the other pebbles.
Pass
Time-
through international water.
Time, water, and moving air, three most powerful movers on this planet. Give water enough time, it will take a stone 100 miles. Back on topic. Cobalt, in the Indian culture is thought to be the blessings of Vishnu because it's blue. It's the same color. One of the awesome things about it is if you add it to other reactive metals, things like lithium, nickel, cadmium batteries, that kind of thing, the cobalt basically tells those metals, everybody chill out. We got a job to do. Lithium, I'm looking at you, don't catch on fire. That's what it does. It stabilizes the other metals. So that's why a Tesla, you heard about the fires in the early ones. They didn't have the cobalt in the batteries. Some guys at MIT several years ago figured out that if you bond the cobalt to the lithium, the batteries won't blow up. And that's what it is. But I just love that because Vishnu, Vishnu is the sleeping god. We are the stuff of his dreams. That's his thing. And that's the blue color. And it's just that it's an awesome peacemaker. And if you add it to any other steel, any other kind of metal, you wind up with incredibly long-lasting tools and metal. But the problem with it is it costs about $50,000 an ounce. So
I heard they were using cobalt a lot in Japan when they were making the katanas and they had the weird pressurized thing that they were on it. Yeah.
That is a different type. That is the Black River sand. It's microtized particles of cobalt bonded to carbon. So that, like I said, if you add it to steel, it makes everything better. You add it to titanium, you get a type of blue wafer thin metal that they use to make the that they've been using recently to make the AI motherboards, because it can carry it's just like the Barantium stuff. It's a superconductor.
It's like cooking. You have the base and then you find different, if you know specifically what type of other things to add to it, you can.
Yes, I was getting to that in just a minute.
Is it expensive because it's hard to get, or
It's
because
difficult to
what it
get,
is?
and the deposits where they get the most of it out of, it takes months to get 20 kilograms of it, and that entire amount is what they put in a Tesla battery. So that's why they're so expensive. It's become what they call blue gold. It's the latest, gold rush. There's big parts of Brazil that have huge deposits of it that I love. Our Mother Earth warriors out there. Private citizens have bought the entire area and said, here's a gift to the Brazilian people. No one's allowed to do anything there. That part of the rainforest is sacrosanct. No one can go there.
Good.
Yep. The only people that are there are the native people that were there from the beginning. That's it.
That's wonderful.
Yep. And the Brazilian military makes a big deal of patrolling to make sure nobody goes in there.
Good.
So that's why I thought it's such a fascinating metal, because it's been around since about 800 AD when somebody figured out what it was. They figured out they could powder it down to almost nothing and add it to glass, and you get this amazingly blue cobalt glass. And I find that fascinating. I really do. This metal is really cool. And once again, it controls the correspondences to what it would do for you just to have it. It controls high energy. It has a very calming effect, much like lithium. But you have to be careful with it because too much can be toxic, just like any other kind of metal. it elevates and intensifies other metals. So even if you had a piece of silver with a cobalt stone in it, that silver itself would become stronger over time because the cobalt molecules it's weird, it would leach into silver over time. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep. So that is about where I am with the talking part. Unless anybody has any quick questions.
What kind of metal do they use on the space station and for?
Oh, that, I'm glad you asked that. I totally forgot to bring that up, but it is a type of aluminum alloy. It has pieces of titanium, tungsten mixed in with it. So it's a way stronger than anything you're gonna find.
And lightweight.
Yeah, it's very lightweight. You could
That's
have,
what's impressive.
yeah, you could have a sheet of it the size of a piece of plywood, be two microns thin. And that would be enough protection for up there because of the nature of the metal. But they back it with a type of blown mineral insulation, which has all kinds of metal and stuff in it, and it's about that thick. But the outside skin of the shuttle of the space station is a special type of aluminum.
Is that, I have a question, so is that like the transparent aluminum from the voyage home, or is that a different?
No, this stuff is actually way stronger. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, on a molecular level, when they put the quarter and an inch and a quarter thick solar panel relays up there, they're all bolted together with 2 millimeter that alloy. It's only 2 millimeters thick, but it's holding the entire solar panel array together. Very strong stuff.
While I'm listening to it, it's fascinating. I mean, so a couple of things kind of jumped in here. I guess first and foremost, how I
just got that.
Yes, and it's how the author J.R. Tolkien, when he was doing in his books, like the actual not quote unquote logo for during the death of the dwarves is a hammer and anvil. It's just hit on that. I was also thinking that a lot of these really good metals and stuff, I mean, aside from everything else, it's like they're probably floating around in international things. It would be a whole bunch of red to even go in there, kind of, let me just go see what I can get. But the thing that really kind of struck me was that aside from the awesomeness of all the different gods kind of thing, is that it reminds me of the practicality we as humans put on certain things. So it would be ideal if we would make something like the national, like the turkey as our national thing. But because it wasn't pretty, then we're gonna go with that. So much in the same way, you're talking about bronze is always third place. You never really hear about bronze, but then when you study it, it's amazingly strong. And why is gold? Because it's shiny. That's the one that everyone likes to kind of put on top, kind of thing. And it's like, why?
I have one caveat about gold. I know it's sought after nowadays. It was once at one time thought of as a useless metal.
Yeah,
Because it's soft. You can't do anything with it other than make like a cup or a bowl out of it. So the early coins, when they find them, they're alloys of steel. Like you look at the side of this, you can't really see it on the camera, but if you look at the side of a modern coin, up until 1964, this was solid silver or 70%. If you look at the side of it now, you can see where they added the copper. And this stuff on the top is a magnesium alloy. It will melt, it will actually burn off and leave you with a little puddle of copper if you smelt this.
Well, that was the problem with gold coins. They're so soft that all you had to do was scrape a little bit off the
That's where
edge.
the ridges came from.
Yeah.
And you could
Because the
have
silver
gold.
money used to have that problem too. They would take it and the assay guy would have a file and just go scrape, here's your change.
They were weapons out of gold, and it's like, nope, no gold weapons for us.
Alba has a question.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Sounds so weird.
When you're talking about the cobalt glass, is all blue glass contain cobalt or some is just colored blue glass?
Some of it is just colored blue.
So when you talk about molecules getting into what's like in a cobalt jar, like if you were gonna do spell work, make jars, you've got blue jars and you've got amber jars. You know, if you get the real thing, then that's great. but you could use it, just, metaphorically. Make the same concoction. It would be different in a blue jar than it would in an amber jar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The spell would
Yeah.
be different.
But your
I don't think so.
intention and your thought form of envisioning that blue jar as a cobalt jar, that's what
Right.
would give it the power. Cause it would, yep. As with all things, it's intention.
Give
But,
me your hand up.
Yes,
No, you're.
but yeah, most of the big blue jars you find now, I'd have to look up what they're colored with, but like
There's other pigments.
yeah, your like Labatt's blue bottles and the St. Pauli girl wine bottles, I'm pretty sure they're not using.
No.
They used to be
Blue
called-
Nun
Yeah.
wine is $3.
The leader. Yeah, all that bottom shelf stuff, there's no cobalt in those bottles. It used to be called, in its raw form, it off gases and it actually smells like, it off gases hydrogen sulfide. So it smells like fart.
Really?
It's originally written in the some of the English chemistry books as cobalt. That little monster from,
Yeah, cobalt with a
cobalt.
D.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're KOBOLD, and they named it that because you couldn't be around it for more than like 2 minutes before you gag, because it's a really smelly metal. Somebody figured out how to smelt it and bond it with there's another type of cobalt, and if you mix the two of them together, it kills the smell because it burns off the hydrogen sulfide first.
So does cobalt glass glow under black light the
No.
way?
No,
Green
it's
glass?
not it's not uranium. It's not reactive. Not radioactive. It doesn't have an isotope number high enough to make it give off gamma. And that's what,
So how can you tell the difference?
with what?
Blue glass and cobalt glass.
That's a good question. I would have to research it more.
Okay,
Um,
fair.
I just off the top of my head, I think there are maker's marks on cobalt glass versus just
That makes
mass
sense.
produced blue glass.
Yeah.
we
And a lot of the real cobalt stuff.
No.
A
No, if
maker's
you-
mark, is anything that stamps it as cobalt.
Yeah, I made this out of cobalt on this day by this guy. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
makers.
yeah.
No, not
Mark
the
by the
wizard.
maker.
No.
Okay.
If makers mark could afford it, they would put,
Are some
Yeah, you know, they look
of your fire colors metals?
yes. That is another wonderful thing about alloys and metallic coloring. The things that I use to change the fire are different colors. Pure copper turns blue. But you mix pure copper with strontium, you get purple. And you mix borax, regular out of the thing. Yes, you mix that with powdered copper and magnesium, you get the brightest blue light you've ever seen. It will be
Wow.
almost white. It's so blue.
Mhm.
It's dangerous because of the magnesium. That's why I don't do it here. It
The
can,
smoke is, it's
the
dangerous.
smoke is
right?
toxic.
Yeah,
That's why I use the little magic fire packs. Those are non-toxic. But different metals do different things. Yep.
And
Right.
like sparklers.
And sparklers, yes. Sparklers are aluminum oxide, which is once again a alloy. And that's a weird one because it's just aluminum that has been allowed to decompose or corrode for a while, and then it's scraped off. And there's a bonding agent, and I want to say it's magnesium that they use to coat it onto the steel. And so when you ignite it, the aluminum itself is explosive, but the magnesium just burns it. So it's so the alloy of the two, aluminum oxide, so it just
So
gets
that
fizzled.
white residue. Huh? Interesting.
Wonder where we can get pure copper, or those metals in that purity form kind of thing. Well, yeah, okay, that's just like, okay.
That's 100% copper. So, yeah, there are a lot of wondrous uses for metals and the alloys that they come from. One of the great things was dental. People know of amalgam. A lot of times they would put 18 karat gold in teeth, all alloys, but after many centuries, they discovered amalgam wasn't good. So they switched over to a non-mercury base, still an alloy, but it's just as strong as the enamel in your teeth once it hardens. So yeah, it's a metal alloy, but it's like putty until you shine a light on it.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like when they put braces on, because when they put braces on, they actually have a blue light that they
The
actually put
epoxy,
on it,
yeah.
it bonds
Hardens
it,
the epoxy.
and it bonds it to your teeth.
Mhm.
You sit there for like 4 hours,
Here's
but
the-
they do it.
This is an example of white gold. This is a type of gold that had so much silver added to it. It's very strong, but you can sometimes you can see I'll pass it around. You can see the gold peeking through. But that's white gold.
I was watching this documentary not so long ago about the makeup practices back in the day, how a lot of cultures would they would like put lead and stuff in
Yeah,
their makeup.
they
They
would
don't
leave
realize
metals
until
because-
now, like they would just
Yeah, because
Plume.
braces are metal.
Which is what it was,
Yeah.
it became known as lead. It is very famous for turning skin 6 different colors of blue.
yeah.
The raw lead will change your complexion. It really will. Put it-
There's the black, it's the same thing.
Yeah, if you have either low quality gold or something just gold plated, a lot of times that's got so much copper in it, it will turn it either green or black depending on your body chemistry.
Yeah, but yeah, I turned green. I
Yeah,
turned
but
green.
that's
I
like.
was
she
just
learns
like,
in it,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
but now it's so fun.
Yeah, cause I have some,
Told you. It's the
I have
nail.
a couple, some necklaces that do the same thing.
Mine does it to
They
nickel.
tarnish.
Mine does it to nickel.
Is this the one ring?
It's one of them.
It is.
The ring.
It is
Not
one
telling
ring.
you what the rest are. Yeah. Okay.
So why is,
Not in capital.
why gold is per se less expensive than?
Yeah.
Because it's rare.
Gold?
It actually is very rare to
It's more
find gold.
expensive, why gold?
Oh, yes, pure gold, 18 karat
The
and
white
higher.
gold.
Oh, the white gold? No, that's actually cheaper than because it's a 50-50 mix.
Right.
So it takes the gold content down to 10 karat.
There's no such thing as a pure white gold, you have to actually make.
Yeah, you gotta blend it with stuff. People used to call back when it was first discovered, platinum
Platinum.
was considered white gold
Okay.
until they realized just how rare that was. Because for every vein, like the Comstock lode, this is going back to the 1800s, biggest gold rush ever. And for every big vein of gold they found, they could go for 50 miles into the mountains and just be following this one gold vein. Somewhere in that 50 miles might be one little 10-foot section of platinum. That's how rare. I mean, it is like whole lot of zeros, 1% of what's in the mantle, whereas gold is like 4%.
Hmm.
So yeah, platinum is wicked. Yes.
I was thinking of, would fool's gold be considered like a metal or?
Yeah.
Fool's gold is a alloy, actually. It's iron and sulfur.
Mhm.
And this, everybody say thank you to Alba. She's taught me that.
Yeah.
I have a little piece of it right here. It's called iron pyrite. A lot of people consider it a mineral, but it is an iron. It just has such a high content of sulfur that it turns yellow. So under the right conditions, if you had this in the field and you had a bag of raw gold dust, they would look almost identical. If you have a bag of iron pyrite and raw gold, they look the same. That's what would fool
Oh, I
people.
have that
Until,
analysis.
yes.
Green iron.
So but how they found out that it was mostly a mineral is when they would go to smelt it. The sulfur would catch on fire and the iron would just bond to the bottom of the crucible. So there was they knew immediately there was no gold because the sulfur burns, it just come out as yellow
It
smoke
smells really bad.
and it's horrible. It's like boiled
Maybe
eggs.
that's what they were using in the alchemy and the
Yeah.
wizards were using.
Yes, they tried to take iron pyrite, which is fool's gold, and lead, which are both only one molecular number away from actual gold. What they used to try and do was using chemicals and other types of alloys and mixing it together to try and get it to take on that one molecule and become gold.
Oh, yeah, that was.
The problem with the experiments, though, is when you heat lead to a certain point and add another metal to it, it immediately gasifies. So fill the whole room up with lead smoke. That's where you get, the crazy wizard, the guys with the hat. They had a blue line on their gums because they were all poisoned with lead.
So is pyrite, it's a metal?
It is.
I thought it was a crystal, sort of.
It inhabits a very interesting place in the world. It is a metal, a mineral,
Uh-huh.
and an element.
So crystallized movie.
Yep,
So it's
Yeah.
3-1.
yep. It's a really neat thing.
And if it's the only thing that'll make pentagons,
Yeah, did any of you notice that?
Yes,
it's the
In the-
only
in
metal that'll
stones, the
crystallize
little-
and make
The
pentagons.
little points are pentagons. Yes.
Oh,
Cause it's special.
It
Right,
is
that's
very
what
special. Yes. Now, I have a craft for everybody who wishes to indulge.
yeah.
These,
You're gonna hammering things?
no, we're just gonna wrap them.
Okay.
Didn't want to drill a bunch of holes in the tip.
but.
Give it to you. These are real pennies. Not the crazy ones you find at the dollar store. But no, these, everybody will come up and you'll pick your penny and go through here and find it.
Take one penny.
And that will be your lucky penny.
Hmm.
And we have certain types of wire, copper, little tools here and everything. So if anybody here is a virtuoso at wrapping things with wire, please make yourself, put your hand up. Anybody?
All day on Wicker Gator.
It's the first one for everything.
But Alba has explained to me that there is a way to do it like how you wrap a Christmas present with a ribbon.
Uh-huh.
You put a ribbon on a box where you come down and twist it and then go the other way and twist it. And you've encased your little
Yeah.
penny in a square.
I have a pseudo example I made earlier.
And if you just offset those, then you can make it interesting, wrap it
Mhm.
again, you can
Yeah,
add to it.
Yeah, mine wound up 5-pointed on, it wound up as a pentagram.
See?
Ooh.
So if
Cool.
everybody wants to
I
come up
am
and
not
give
sure
that
I
a shot.
have the talent.
Try.
There's this wire.
Got the penny, try another one.
Yeah, well,
If you wanna wrap a quarter, you can wrap a
you
quarter.
feel like you need that much luck.